Roll call. Alan?
Here.
John? He's here. Terry?
Yes, here.
Vicky? Vicky? Okay. Absent. Derek?
Here.
Nick?
Here.
And Christy is here. The Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Sorry about that. Approval of the agenda.
Motion. Nick.
Motion by Nick. Second.
Second, Derek.
Second. Oh, John. Second by Derek. Roll call. Alan.
Yes.
John. Yes. Yeah, he's trying it. Terry.
Yes.
Vicky, are you here? No. Vicky's absent. Derek.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
And Christy's a yes. Okay, motion passes. So we go to approve in-person transition plans. So you want to present that, Lisa?
As we look at our transition to in-person hybrid learning plan, in response to the data, the governor's order, and our current learning plan, we'll go through the proposal and survey numbers and our reasoning behind the proposal and our plan. After our last board meeting, we met with our COVID leadership team on December 18th at 7:30 a.m. As we talked about. And that recommendation was to bring back our ECK1 and fourth grade through sixth grade, if possible, for the in-person learning on January 19th. And then to use transition days for staff, the 2 days that are designated and required in the transition plan for in-person learning for that January 15th and January 18th. And then there would be no school for students on those days. And I'm glad to say that we found out that we can do that. So we'll be able to bring that 2-3 grade band of learners back, so 6 grades back. So that was good to hear and exciting that we'll be able to bring 6 grade bands back. And then what we would do is that transition plan then brings, 2 weeks later, we bring more students back. So as we bring those in-person grade bands back on the 19th, the rest of the district would come back in hybrid. That would mean our plan would be 2nd and 3rd grade and 7th through 12th grade would start on hybrid on the 19th. Tier 1 childcare would continue for that 2nd and 3rd grade on January 19th through the 29th. And then grades 2nd and 3rd would be rolled in after that for the initial 2 weeks on February 1st. And then grades 7 through 12 would remain in hybrid at that time. And then Lori, did you want to speak to a little bit about why we chose that AC first grade?
Sure. With the EC through first grade, I guess we felt that with the leadership team's recommendation, but also just that it would be beneficial to follow the state guidelines to have those youngest learners come in starting on that January 19th. With my experience with early childhood and elementary education, I understand the importance of building those strong relationships and the foundational skills with our youngest students. And this is going to be best accomplished by bringing Kickstart through first grade into full in-person learning first. There are other benefits to having them come into the building as well. It's going to allow them time to adjust and get used to the new routine with less students in the building. It's developmentally appropriate for our youngest learners to be in person versus the paper packets and on the computer because of the screen time. We want to make sure that we're thinking of that as well. Our 2nd and 3rd grade students are more independent, and they've had that additional practice during hybrid that's helped them prepare for the Google Meet sessions with their teachers and complete assignments online. they're better able to also remember and know how to log on and get into those different types of learning platforms. As our younger learners transition to all in person, our second and third grade teachers are ready to continue delivering that hybrid instruction. We also have face-to-face interaction with our Kickstart through first grade. For social skills, it's best to be delivered in person for those social skills. And then the technology, and I did mention that a little bit already, but our kindergarten didn't get their devices until we first started full distance learning, where second and third grade had them from the beginning of the year. And we're still waiting for those devices to come in for Kickstart. So they've been at a little bit more of a disadvantage as far as not having the daily meets to be able to get in with their teachers unless it's been phone calls or through a Remind app. So that would be another benefit to having our Kickstart through first grade come in first.
Helps when your microphone's on, sorry. Those are some of the things that we talked about with our leadership team meeting and an admin meeting as we looked at the model and the proposed model coming forward. This is what it would look like, the transition to in-person learning as an EC12 distance learning on January 4th as we moving into in-person. As you could see, would be January 4th through the 14th. Distance learning, we're still continuing to bring in at-risk students on site. And then on January 15th and 18th, the required transition planning days with bringing students starting the in-person transition on January 19th, looking at those 3 grade band levels at the Ogama site and the 3 grade band levels at our Waubun Elementary site. And then with the rest going hybrid. So that goes through January 19th through February 1st with those grade levels in those plans. And notice that we still have the hybrid A and the hybrid B plan going. So we'd still be working with those students every other day, supporting in-person for students in the hybrid with remote learning on the opposite days. And then on February 1st, we would roll in a full EC through 6 in-person learning model. And then at this point, continue with hybrid secondary until we look at where things are at with guidance at that point and what we are allowed to do with our middle school and high school. As we continue to look at some of the survey results, started looking at the results as of 9:30 this morning. We did get good results, so Christy, we're right. Get those results out and parents will get their information in. We had 275 out of 358 stakeholders reporting. Looks like 12% to about 15% at that time. We're looking at distance learning. Not a whole lot of discrepancy between grade levels. We got some more specific data for you. There were some ups and downs, some little bit more as we go through by grade level. There's some more specific numbers for you on EC through 6, but you can see 4th, 5th, and 6th, a little bit more concentrated on in-person, fewer in distance learning. In the EC through 3, not a big difference in the numbers there. Eric and Lori, did you have anything to add in there?
Just that there might be a few changes from what you're seeing on the screen from what you had earlier for the board members because we updated it as we were able to. And our first and our third grade classes are our larger classes in Ogama. And right now we have a designated teacher for kindergarten, first, second, and third with distance learning. And with the numbers, we still have to determine if we're going to continue that, what that will look like. Our first grade has 4 sections, so we're fortunate to still be able to separate into 3 different sections for first grade and have a distance learning teacher. So we'll continue with that. But otherwise, we just have a few that we're still waiting to hear from, and we've had a few phone calls out there. So if there's anybody that didn't get a chance to respond and you've had a message, feel free to call back and give us the information.
And then as we continue to go through. This is just a couple of snippets from the survey to give you an idea of the kind of questions that were asked. They were answered by students, so by family and each student. So not every family had to obviously answer for the same student. They could, if they had a student that distance learning was working best, they could have one student maybe stay at distance learning and maybe have another student come back to in-person. And so families were given a choice by student. And then you can see the response to transportation. And once again, this was taken from the survey at 9:30 this morning. And then we'll take some questions, but before we do that, we wanted to give some recognition to Brittany Forensic, Deja Anderson, Christy Belfi, Andrea Haverkamp, and all the teachers for all the work they did getting out the surveys. I know some parents, you were getting it every day, but it was very critical that we get this feedback as we make plans, look at options and ideas. So thank you very much to the stakeholders for the prompt response to the surveys. Your response to this is critical in planning. So thank you so much. And thank you to everybody, all the staff who are working on the future and all the many transitions that happen in this time of COVID. So thank you everyone for your work. So open that up for thoughts, ideas, questions.
Lots. Lots of questions. Okay. First off, thank you to everybody.
One moment.
Is it still really bad?
Mine is now shut off.
Oh, just have to do my talking for me.
There, stop.
Is it better?
No, it just stopped a second, started again. There, it's off now.
I guess so, huh? Can't have no clean. Easier for my readers than How about now?
It's fine.
Much
Yeah.
better?
Yep.
Okay, I'll shut these off. Does anybody else have questions before I ask them? Okay. So we've been having a lot of conversations too. First of all, thank you so much to everybody for the quick response. The community, the teachers, the staff, the administration, everybody that really kicked it up to get this much response in. This was a very, very important piece to the puzzle for us to get students back. And as you can see, with only 10 to 15% distance learning, that's how much it's needed and wanted to get back into school. And that just shows me that it does. My opinion from last time is still the same. I know, Lori, your EC was it kindergarten and first grade are, that makes most sense. And it does for, for the way you stated it. And, but I still think that our first, second, and third graders are the priority. So why would we not be able to have them, or a majority of ours in tier 1, the EC Kickstart, EC and Kickstart basically?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say we were around 30 with Kickstart in kindergarten.
So then if we were to do 1, 2, and 3, they would be coming in on tier 1 childcare?
If they're pre-approved to be in childcare, they can come in for the tier 1, yes.
So I'm just throwing out, a big, probably a throw a little monkey wrench into it. But what would happen if we opened up for tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3? That would bring up all of our kids into their EC and kindergarten, and then you would be able to place them in the room where they're normally going to be.
You were cutting out through part of that, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Say it again.
Yes.
Lisa, keep your damn mic off. Okay, so in EC and kindergarten. So what would happen if we opened up tier 1, tier 2, and opened up all of the childcare for the EC and kindergarten? That would be bringing them in also. And so why would we not be able to put them in their rooms, perspective, for that, be able to have them, then they were there every day because they're in childcare. And it would be basically, the same thing. I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I'm sorry.
No, I'm just thinking through as far as like our staffing goes, because we have, right now, we've been working very hard to be able to make it work with our childcare. And we'd be having students in hybrid for those kickstart and kindergarten, plus we would need to have the childcare. And if you're adding more students to that, then I'd need to have more rooms and more staff available to be able to.
Okay, but for the childcare, so do they have to be students here for Kickstart and kindergarten, right? They have to be students here. So they're already here, right? So they're already enrolled. So if we open it up to bring them in, why would they have to go to a different room?
Because we're trying to keep the room numbers to 10 or less for the spacing that we have right now.
But we don't have to do that anymore, am I correct?
Well,
I think what you're asking is finding a way to bring everybody back in person through childcare.
Well, what I'm asking is that we bring back 1, 2, and 3 and trying to find some solution to EC and kindergarten.
And I think one of the things, and tell me if I'm wrong, but one of the discussions we had, if you do that, we still need the staff then to run the tier 1 childcare. And then that's pulling them away from the services for the in-person. Right now, we've pulled paras away from the in-person and the special ed paras who provide the special ed services, who will be back in person in the other 3 grade bands. And so as we're transitioning in, she's already going to be stretched tight with staff trying to provide the in-person transition with the paras that they're going to need with those special ed students back in the classroom. All of those requirements become back in place again. So the special ed requirements, the one-on-one paras that are required with those in-person students, so we're already going to transition staff back to those services for those in-person kids, which is going to pull kids away from tier 1 childcare. And so you're trying to stretch staff back in this transition to provide the services for the in-person kids and the in-person special ed paras, and do that. And then to add more kids into tier 1 childcare when you're already pulling para staff out of there. And I realize it's the smaller grade levels, but you're still adding services to all those other kids for in-person again. You're not going to have the staffing availability. And then when you look at who qualifies for tier 1 childcare and you open it up to everybody, you're really looking at saying we're bringing everybody back in for in-person, but we're having our teachers still spread out in 2 different models. And so it really it's not feasible. We wouldn't have the staffing for the childcare. Is that correct, Lori?
yes, that would be correct. And then just trying to figure out as far as, because we still have to stagger our recess, we still have to have lunch in the classrooms and to have the supervision to be able to cover all those pieces as well. And if we're, like you said, if we're stretching thin, then who are we going to have to go into those areas and still give our teachers and our staff their lunch? So it does come down to some scheduling for sure.
So I think I mean, I love the idea of the way you're thinking, and the way to do that, but trying to have the staff figure out to have the staffing to do all of that. We're going to be pulling staff from tier 1 to provide if it makes sense, to provide the in-person, because all the requirements for that in-person comes back into place for those kids that are back in person. And so then we're still trying to do tier 1, and then tier 1 childcare will slowly transition out once we're back in person completely.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that why are we not doing that right away then? I mean, that's the opportunity that we're trying to get everybody back in there.
Because we still have to have tier 1 childcare and provide it as it is for those kids that are in hybrid, but you can't get rid of hybrid. Otherwise, you're not doing a roll-in. You have to be accountable and responsible for your roll-in.
What I'm saying is that okay, so who's in hybrid in elementary? Who would be in hybrid in elementary?
Second and third grade.
Okay, let's say we've got 1 and 3 back, 1, 2, and 3 back, so they're back. Who else is in hybrid?
Then it would be ECK under that model.
So if you're not gonna, they wouldn't be in hybrid if they're bringing them into childcare. If you're bringing them back in under, bringing them all back in. Do you get, am I not clear?
They don't.
Chrissy, am I understanding you right? Chrissy, am I understanding you right? You're doing this semantically. You're just stating that we'll do childcare, that all the kids will be in every day is what you're saying.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay, but
you wouldn't
the
have,
issue.
you wouldn't have any childcare to pull them from either ones, and you wouldn't have anybody in hybrid because they're
Right.
all in-person learning. So where is that pulling teachers from? And I guess I'm just not understanding it all because
Right.
in my mind, they're all going to be in the classes where they're supposed to be.
Right, but childcare is much different than in-person learning. And when Lori was talking about the in-person learning for our youngest learners, that's those foundational skills. And I think that's what we're really banking on is making sure those really young kids get those foundational skills. And also, and I think you know this, little guys aren't that great with technology. It's not that they're bad. It's just they don't know how to use it fully like our older kids do. And that's just a matter of technology and kids. But also, and this is one thing that I feel as a administrator and district leader, by us not getting them the technology that they needed, and no fault of ours, we ordered it in time and all that. It's just COVID. The in-person learning is very important. I understand what you're saying, getting them in all the time, but there's a marked difference between childcare and in-person learning.
So we're not able to bring kids in daycare and put them into the classroom. That's not an option. Isn't that what you're asking?
Right, and I know that's what you guys are asking, but that's goes right against the state guidelines, and that would not be a role in, like Mrs. Weber was saying. Childcare is much different, but I read through the lines. I hear what you guys are saying. Unfortunately, I don't think it's a very plausible thing to do.
Well, I mean, at this point, we're trying to get what we can do for the kids. And right now, at least for the state, where the state's concerned, yes, they gave us this permission to do this, but really, at this point, I really am not, I don't know, I can't really, how do I put that into words? We want to do what we're going to do to get our kids into school.
And we're going to get them in school, Christy.
And I want it right away. I don't want to, I just don't think that rolling it in this way is the greatest thing in the world. And
no, but we do have hybrid.
It's not helping anything, and it's not going to help the parents that are out there.
But we do have hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know
hybrid.
you have hybrid. I understand that you have hybrid on the second and third grade, but I guess I'm just not understanding that. And I just don't see how it is that much of a hardship to get our kids into school, because what happens in 2 weeks when they all come back in then? It's the same thing. We're just moving it up 2 weeks. I mean, that's what am I seeing this thing wrong?
No, I understand what you're saying, Christy, but if you heard what the proposal was, if we got the little guys back right away for 2 weeks, I know you did. I'm just reiterating, but if we got the little guys back for 2 weeks, it would give us some time with let me rephrase that. with less than the other kids being around, so we can get those guys accustomed back to in-person learning, because it's going to be a huge transition even for our students. Remember, they've been used to learning from home, and it's going to be a major transition for all of us. And the biggest thing we want to do, and again, this is where we always stand on. We want to make sure that everything is successful, and especially our learning. When we listen to Lori and she's telling us the foundational skills are the best, and we might need that, or I shouldn't say we might, we will need that for those little guys to make sure that we're getting them back into all the routines that they need. I think that goes a long way for us, and that's why we put it in the proposal.
Whether you agree or not, the whole intent of doing this roll-in and starting with the earliest learners was to reduce mitigation. We're going to have all these kids on the bus together. And it was to bring in the roll-in, to have the smallest number of kids together, to roll in, to make sure that there isn't spread. And so I think we need to err on the side and follow the guidance. The bad thing about straying from the guidance and straying from the executive order is if something bad happens and then we have spread, is that we didn't follow it. And we need to err on the side of what's safe for our kids and what's safe for the students. And in 2 weeks, we can roll it in if we don't have incident. If we have incident, the idea of having 3 grade band roll-ins in each grade is if you have incident, you can manage it and stay on your plan much easier than you have more kids in the building. And so the idea is with those 3 grade bands, and like I said, you don't have to agree with it, but that's the intent of that. That's the reason, and that's why MDH, the Department of Health, and Department of Education is doing that.
I understand where that's coming from. I've been doing this for a long time too. I've been reading a lot of things about it as well. So I understand the intent. I understand everything about that. But what I'm trying to get at is that, yes, that's what guidance. It doesn't mean we have to. I mean, it's there. But if you're saying
in 2 weeks, it's going to be okay.
right, in 2 weeks, it's going to be okay. So why is it such a big deal to bring it up 2 weeks? Why is that so hard to do? That's my point, is that we want to get everyone coming in here. I think at the last meeting, somebody said, who's going to police that? Are they going to come in and spank us? Are they going to do something like that? I mean, I don't foresee that happening. I guess that's where I'm coming from. And I did give you guys ample, that this is where I was going. I tried to give that to you guys yesterday, that this is what I think needs to happen. And that's,
And that question has been going around in the superintendent's group. And the answer to that was, no, do they monitor ethics? Do they monitor that you're following the governor's ordinance? Or do they monitor that? Some are saying yes, some are saying no, but the answer is you as board members don't have your license tied to this. We do. So we're going to follow the guideline and follow the ethics, follow what we're told to do. Once again, I'm not thrilled we're having discussion of how we can violate the order and violate the guidelines. I was okay with talking about which grade level bands came in. I did not know we were going to talk about how we could once again get around the executive order. I'm not comfortable with that conversation.
well, I had to give you ample warning that that's what I was going to talk about, and that this is what I had wanted to see, and that this is where we were going to go. It's not that I'm trying to circumvent the executive order, but I'm just saying that executive order, if it just doesn't fit what kids need in this district. And this district is what we have as board members are representing. And I understand that this isn't, your licenses aren't tied to that. Do you really think that your licenses are going to be in jeopardy because of a decision we made that made you do that? That's what I don't think that's what's going to happen. You did your best in trying to tell us, and you gave us the information, but all board decisions are board decisions. Am I like, I understand that. But I like to put things out on the table. I'm not somebody that, I don't beat around the bush. I never have. And so when I think that things are going a way that I don't agree with, I'm going to tell you. And I appreciate the fact that you tell me that that's not something that you want to do. And I get that. But I also am looking at, well, how many kids in EC in kindergarten? Those kids I don't want left out either. Second and third graders, you're looking at those fail rates. I look at the fail rates in this whole school on that, and that is something that is just alarming. So yes, I am going to push, and I am going to say that this is what we need to do. And if you don't agree with that,
Well, and what we agree on is we're excited to get kids back in in-person learning, and we're talking about a difference of 2 weeks. So what we agree on, Christy, 100% is I cannot wait. And I am excited that we are having a conversation about getting kids into in-person learning. And we're talking about a difference of 2 weeks. And do I think it's okay to violate the order and to have this discussion when we're talking about a difference of 2 weeks? No, I don't think it's worth doing that. But
but it would be a violation, I don't think, because you're still doing tier 1 childcare and bringing them in that way. How is that a violation, really?
to do tier 1 childcare, they have to qualify and be a critical care worker. That's not bringing in all grade levels.
Do you have a choice of doing tier 2 and tier 3, or tier 1 and tier 2? Is that in what we can do?
Would not bring in tier 2. I suppose we could do tier 2. That would not bring in, and not under this order, not when you're transitioning and using it as a roll-in. No, that would be looking at violating that order.
Do you guys, anybody else have anything to say? I feel like I'm out on my own island here.
Go ahead, Dick.
Go ahead. Oh, I had some people approach me this evening on some things. One of it was, is why can't we get back into it right away? Because the sports are starting right away. I mean, they asked me the same thing. Why hold off 2 weeks when the sports are already starting? And that was approached to me a couple times. So I guess that's where I don't know what, the sports are starting. So if the sports are starting, school should be starting, is what more or less what they were saying to me anyway. So they were kind of asking about this executive order. What, I don't know, since the sports are starting.
And my response to that would be, Terry, that there's numerous things, even within the, high school guidance, there's some things that they say you can do on the courts and play in the games, but you can't travel together. I mean, there's numerous times with this COVID-19 where the things, guidance doesn't make sense. But in order for our kids to participate, in order for our schools to participate, we need to follow them. And so because we don't like them doesn't mean we don't follow them. So if we want our kids to participate in activities, we follow the Minnesota State High School League guidance, whether they make sense and they're consistent or not. And if we are a public school under the direction of the Department of Education and the Department of Health, then we follow the executive orders and we follow the guidance. You're elected board members that take oaths. We are, like we've already gone through this before, but we have code of ethics and we follow them. We're talking a difference of 2 weeks.
Right,
So,
and I'm not saying to violate your ethics. I'm not saying that ethics is something that is, it's coming from the heart. It's not something that you're saying that, is going to be such a terrible thing. It's not a terrible thing to want something different for our kids than what is guidance.
And I wouldn't disagree with what Christy says. I mean, and quite honestly, I don't think it's unethical to want our kids back any sooner and get them here as soon as possible. The executive order is it guidance? I think the executive order is the executive order. Is all this stuff guidance? I don't know. I haven't looked into it that much. I just want to see as many kids back as soon as possible, and I don't want to minimize 2 weeks. 2 weeks is big at this point for these kids to be in the class, and if we can get them there, that's my preference. And that's what I want. I want the most kids back as soon as possible. They need it.
I agree with you, Nick. I agree, and I believe that our plan does that.
How much difference would it make in the staff between the 19th and the 12th? I mean, those kids, like Christy's saying, they're still there. Those tier 1, 2, they're in our building. So if it's the amount of kids in the building, is there going to be, where is the staff going to come from when we get them back on the 19th? If we got to keep them, distanced and.
So they'll be back in the classrooms, but it won't be spread out throughout the building, having classrooms and childcare. And you need to have supervision both in the classroom and in the childcare.
So the difference is they just won't be spread out as thin. They'll
Right,
be
and
in class.
they'll be in their designated classrooms at that
So you're
point.
gonna be able to have more than 10 in the classroom after the 19th?
We can have them 3 feet apart.
But we
That's
can't
the new-
before this rollout.
We're not supposed to, but that's the new guidance, is that you can have them 3 feet apart.
See, and I think that's where Christie's, and I have the same thought. I mean, if the kids are in the building, we might as well be teaching them. They're there anyway. So it's the 3 feet thing versus the 6 feet thing, is what you're telling me.
And they are being taught every day. They still log in, they have their Google Meets. It's through the distance learning version. So the ones that are in childcare, and then the others are in their home setting.
Okay.
And I get the frustration and I get where you're coming from. And, you know, I'm the one that's attending these meetings with, you know, the commissioners and with all these rules and dealing with the other districts going through the similar frustrations and who made their plans when and by what dates and, you know, who's being held accountable. And, you know, I get that. I do understand the frustration. And I can tell you that we're committed to getting kids back as soon as they can. But I strongly believe we need to follow the guidance. We need to get our kids back as soon as we possibly can. I feel very strongly that this board is committed. I believe our staff is committed. Our administration is committed. We need to get them back as soon as possible, but we need to do that according to the plan. And I agree, Nick, we shouldn't minimize the 2 weeks. But I also don't think that we should jeopardize not, you know, following that guidance, following the executive order, because we're so frustrated in the process and frustrated with the executive order and frustrated with COVID and frustrated with everything else that we just throw everything out with the bathwater. We are on our way to getting exactly what we need for our kids. And we can get there. We just got to keep it together and move forward. We are so close.
I just want to piggytail on what Johnny said, and probably a little bit more for Lori. So, Lori, what you're saying, like in reference to what Christie's proposal is, if we had the kids back in school, what you're saying is that there's not as many as there would be if it was face to face. So you're still required to have a teacher, so to say, in the child care component, yet that same teacher, or a different teacher I should say, for the kids who are still home on hybrid. So it's like, is that what, maybe just to clarify that, if I took that away correctly?
So right now our classroom teachers are doing their live sessions, whether the students are in childcare or in the home setting. And then we also have some of our special teachers who are going around and are helping within the childcare setting. They wouldn't be able to do that. They would need to be back into their regular classroom setting scheduling when we go back to in-person. So in order for us to try to bring more into childcare, plus then we would lose some of those staff to go to their regular schedules to be in person.
And then making those rooms in-person learning, as if the whole, you know, pre-K through third grade was back in Ogama, then that's what you're saying, Lisa, violates the executive order, correct?
Correct.
So if that violates the executive order, we can't do what we would like to do. So then to me, it turns into just sheer numbers as quickly as possible. If we were to switch and go 1, 2, 3, first, second, third, you're bringing back 130 kids versus the EC1, which you're looking at about 90 kids. Legally, the 4 and 5-year-olds don't have to be in school. I respect what you said in terms of what you think needs to be done there, but the kids that are going to be missing out on those 2 weeks, they've already went through that. They're developing, they're continuing to learn, and they need to continue to learn, and those days would be valuable to them. So I mean, my preference is to do what Christy is wanting, but I don't know if that's in the cards. But if not, to me, it turns into a numbers game, and to get as many kids back as quickly as possible. Understanding that the EC kindergarten are going to remain in, or will be in hybrid, which isn't that what's good. It's just I would prefer to flip flop if we can't go that route.
To do the 1, 2, 3 transition in first
If we can't
without the childcare. Yeah.
if we can't do what, if that's specifically in that executive order that we're not able to
Yeah.
get those kids there by having them in childcare and having them in the class. I mean, I want as many kids back as soon as possible.
So I'm just going to play the other side of the sword on this one. So, but what Lori was saying is that the capability of that ECFE group and the kindergarten group is less on the technological side. So if the EC and kindergarten and first grade came back first, we would still have second and third grade in the hybrid model, and they are a little bit more adaptable as far as technology, right? In navigating all that. Am I right on that? Is that what you initially said, right, Lori?
Yes, that's correct, Vicki.
So in
Yeah.
the hybrid model, if we break this down, the second and third graders would be getting 5 days, right? Because are you going to do A and B, right? Bringing all that back. So so they're going to essentially, it's going to be 1 week if you think about it as far as learning, not necessarily in person, but education, correct? Because they'll get 2 days each week.
Yes.
2 days in
3,
person
I
and
guess, with Friday.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I would assume that would be the case. The older kids can handle it a little bit better, but the younger kids are still going to be in school. And I'm just coming from a sheer numbers point: 130 kids versus 90 kids. That's all. And the 4 and 5 year olds legally don't have to be in school. I mean, again, I understand what Lori's saying. I respect it. I appreciate what she put together for us. But if we're not able to go the other route, I'm just looking at maximizing the number of kids.
Al, are you still on the call? You were on the committee also. Did you have anything?
Sorry, were you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yep.
You-
No, and then,
You were on the
And I was-
committee too. So did you have anything?
yep. Yeah, I know the early child care. Well, of course, all the teachers want their kids in school. But the other thing I was thinking, when you come back with hybrid, and the teachers are still going to be their distance learning, but also when they come back 5 days a week, when you got roughly 8, 9 kids on average per class, is that enough to dedicate one teacher to distance learning for each grade? Or will the teachers have to also do, the teaching all day plus the distance learning?
Great question, Al. It's going to depend on the grade level at this time. I know with our first and our third grade, the numbers are higher than 8 or 9. So we probably continue to have one designated teacher there if possible for distance learning. And we have talked with the other grade levels about the possibility of sharing that distance learning responsibility, where one day a teacher might be responsible for the math lesson, one might be responsible for the reading lesson, and that way they would each be able to have their own cohort of students that they would have in class as well. So it's a combination, and I think that we also have to consider, again, the state guidance as far as the extra 30 minutes of prep time. And we definitely have to put that into play to be able to make that work for our teachers who will be doing both in-person and distance learning for the remainder of the year.
Okay, and then the other question I had is, I know we're advertising for, 2 more subs. I think they're certified. Are we looking at all for any non-certified subs, just get extra people in the building if we're having, trouble with scheduling and different things? And I know it's just hard to find people to work, so.
Yeah, we're always looking for subs. And we do have a few people that just in the past couple of weeks have signed up. So that's something that's promising for our non-certified sub pool.
And I don't know what everybody thinks, administrators and stuff too. But one thing I've been thinking about, you talk about the failure rates, Christy, and stuff, and I'm really hoping that the teachers and administrators hold the parents' feet to the fire and fail some kids so they have to repeat next year if they're not getting their work done this year. That's kind of the way I've been feeling.
And that's a great point. I mean, there was numbers, I can't remember what the numbers were exactly as far as numbers of first, second, and third graders on that list. And not that the ECK are not important, but those kids that are in the 1, 2, 3, they're being impacted now. I agree, hold their feet to the fire. They got to accept the consequences, but I don't want to see that. And if we can get those kids in those few extra days, maybe that's the difference. That's 130 kids versus 90 kids. Like I said, if we can't go the other route, that's where I want to see it go.
And I'm just going to throw out there too that we do have some of our families that are choosing distance learning, and it's not as easy as saying get them in. We have been working with a lot of these families day in and day out, and it's not easy, and our teachers have been trying and they are creative. We've been sending out Barb, and we've had Patty going out trying to do home visits to help them understand. So I think in some cases that's not in our control right now. We're doing what we can in our control, but it's difficult when they have the option to continue to do distance learning.
No, you're absolutely right. And when I visited the schools, I heard the same thing from several teachers, and it is very unfortunate to hear that. There was even an anecdotal story where, well, if juniors got to redo the third grade, that's what has to happen. And that's terrible to hear. And again, to not minimize those few days and get the most kids in as possible. That's what I want to see.
Derek, do you have anything to say? Do you have anything to add?
I got one question. If we move like the second and third, the hybrid after the 19th, could we move that ahead a week? Just those? Get something started?
It's a 2-week mandate for the roll-in, and once again, that's because of that reducing mitigation for the safety. And if you have an outbreak or anything else, you can control that better. So it's a every 2 weeks roll-in.
Yeah, that's what my question was, because, they're under the hybrid. And then the 19th there, if we just, move the second and third up a week. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out.
No idea is a bad idea, Terry.
Right.
I just like to push mine harder. Okay, so Derek, are you still on call?
Christy, your computer's doing that again.
My computer's doing that again. This time I have nothing there. Right. Derek? Now, better? Huh?
That's better now.
How about now? It isn't. My mic is on. Is it not there? Okay. But am I not being heard or what?
It must be something with your mic, Christy.
Wait, what?
Must be your headphone jack.
Well,
Lori, well, I have another question maybe. Do you have enough staff to do the first, second, and third grade first, as well as have childcare for the EC and the kindergarten kids that attend? Like, are you able to do that with all the distance rules and all the safety rules?
We'll do the best we can, Vicky. It really depends on who we have that's able
But
to
like,
be.
are you concerned about space and size? Or do you feel like, I mean, I don't know, I'm trying to guess.
Space and size as far as
Yeah, like size of the classrooms and like spacing out the kids coming in, because you said you have about 30 in tier 1 right now that are the EC kids and the kindergarten kids
EC kindergarten.
combined.
Yes, that are on the register, that they're, if they can, they come in. So there are times where we have between 10 and 11 per classroom. So we would need 2 to 3 rooms to be able to do that childcare for Kickstart and kindergarten. In addition to the regular classrooms.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yep.
okay, now how is it? Is it coming back?
Lori, does the 3-foot rule apply to like the childcare area too, or is that just in-person learning?
That's for the in-person learning. Right now with the childcare, we've been trying
Still
to
has to be
maintain 6 feet.
Mm. Well, this is an easy puzzle, huh?
Okay, so Derek, I have yet to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this? Are you there? I don't know. Am I not hearing him or is he here?
I don't see him on there.
Okay, well, I guess we lost Eric there for a little bit. I don't know if he's coming back or not. Okay, so then I need, if we have no further discussion, is there anything else anybody is proposing, or what is, no, so we'll get moving on this. Does anybody want to propose a motion, or do they want to approve the proposed motion by the proposed in-person transition plan as presented?
This is Alan. I'd make a motion to propose the transition plan as presented.
Okay. Motion by Alan, second.
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Vicky. Okay. Roll call vote. Alan,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Vicky,
Yes.
Derek.
Yes.
You're here?
Yes.
Okay. Derek's a yes. Nick?
No.
No. Christie is a no. Okay, motion passes 5-2. Future considerations of the board, data review. January 8th at 7:30 and 6:2 is special board meeting reorganization on January 8th at 8 a.m. and a regular school board meeting on January 20th of 2021 at 6 p.m. Is there anything else? Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion, Derek.
Second.
Motion by Derek, second by Nick. Roll call, Alan,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Terry? Terry's yes. Vicky,
Yes.
Derek,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Christie, yes. We are adjourned, 7:03.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you guys. Have a Merry
You
Christmas.
guys.
Yes. Happy
Merry
holidays,
Christmas,
everybody. Stay safe.
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
Christie.
Have a Merry
Guys.
Yes. Happy
Merry
holidays,
Christmas, everybody.
everybody. Stay safe.